Hello readers, I'm Amy and today we are doing the Plastic Hearts Miley Cyrus tag. This tag was created by Joannotations because of her love for the Plastic Hearts album. I too love this album, so wanted to go through the questions. I'm really trying right now when I do tags to talk about books that you don't see as much on my channel, because I feel like my main problem with doing tags lately, I just feel like I always talk about the same books, so I did try to choose some different things. Let's go ahead and get started. Our first one is WTF Do I Know? Fierce character who doesn't settle for less. For this one, I decided to go with a little princess. You have the character of, I believe her name is Sarah. Yeah, Sarah. And she doesn't really settle for less. Like, she is this little rich girl. She eventually becomes very impoverished, but she does not allow herself to be less than her best at any one moment. If she's going to be a pretty little rich girl, she's going to share everything that she has with the people around her. When she is impoverished, she works so hard to make lives easier for others. Like, you can never expect less than her absolute best, and that's what I loved about this character. Then we have Plastic Hearts. Joannotations said that she wanted to have like the California Dreaming sort of vibes for this one, so she says, name a song that reminds you, or name a book, sorry, that reminds you of sunshine. So I had to go with I'll Give You the Sun. It's got the sun in the name, and it's a very artistic book. It's got lots of metaphors. It's got an artist main character, and when I think of art, I think of sunshine and happiness, because art is what makes me happy. And so in so many ways, this book made me think of sunshine. Still makes me think of sunshine. If you haven't picked this up, if you're not super into YA, I would really suggest giving it a try. I'm not usually into super metaphorical novels, but something about this, it's the art and the sunshine of the book and the relationship of the twins. It just, there's something magical about this. I'm actually going to scoot over so I can put stuff on the screen here. Angels Like You, a book that brought you to your knees. For this, I am picking When We Collided. I'm not going to talk too much about this book here. I do have a full review that I have filmed. I'm going to be posting it after the live show for this book. I am reading this with Fariha from Bookworms Paradise. We are in a book club together. It's Bodies and Books, focusing on sexual assault, mental health, and feminism. And this book definitely brought me to my knees. It gave me, if you're familiar with Bridge to Terabithia, it's not the same book by any means, but it just gave me those kind of Bridge to Terabithia vibes. You have this epic summer with this sad boy and this spark of light girl who just comes out of nowhere, and it just, it brought me to my knees. I'm like, what am I gonna do after this book, you know? Next we have Prisoner, an epic duo, and for that I had to go with My Best Friend's Exorcism. Maybe not so much of an epic duo, because like, while this really focuses on the best friendship between our two girl main characters, one of the girls does end up getting possessed, and so we don't really get to see that much of her side of the friendship, but you can tell by how her friend hangs on literally through thick and thin that this duo was epic, and perhaps this duo can continue to be epic into the future of their lives. I loved the friendship of this book, and whenever I think of epic duos and epic friendships and just a great pair, I have to mention My Best Friend's Exorcism, which, by the way, apparently this is going to be turned into a movie next year, and you can count me there on premiere night. Gimme What I Want, romantic guilty pleasure. I don't know that I would say it's guilty pleasure necessarily, but I mean, I don't read that much romance, but I'm really reading a lot more romance lately, and the Brown sisters, just, I don't feel guilty about it, I just feel pleasure. I loved reading every single one of these books. I would love to read them all again someday. Just the diversity and the consent and the sexiness and the banter and how cute the relationships are. These are the romantic books that I'm going to talk about. Then we have Night Crawling, which we're going to go with a dystopia for this one. And this one I don't talk about as much, but it's Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas. And this it's one of the first, if not the first book that got me into dystopia. I was never a dystopia person growing up. It's a very depressing genre, typically. Being part of sci-fi, it tended to be very, very sexist. Not that other genres aren't sexist, but sci-fi, I need to do a video on it. Sci-fi seems especially sexist for some reason. But then I started reading, it was Handmaid's Tale that I first read. And women authors of dystopias are my sweet spot for dystopias. Like, if a woman author has written a dystopia, I'm probably going to try and read it at some point. And Red Clocks very much felt like the lead up from where we are now to what happens in Handmaid's Tale, where you've got the pink border, but I think it's called the pink border, between the United States and Canada, where like you can get an abortion in Canada and not in the US, but Canada's kind of put up this wall, so if you're American you can't go to Canada to get the abortion. It's stuff like that. It's more about the politics and the paperwork that lead up to women's oppression, or women's further oppression, women's more extreme. And I really liked it. It was a little more subtle, almost a little more realistic. It scared me more because it seems like it would happen sooner than The Handmaid's Tale, if that makes sense. But yeah, if you like The Handmaid's Tale, like, I think you should give this one a try. I don't hear enough people talking about it. Then we have Midnight Sky, On the Road at Midnight, a runaway, perhaps. And so for this one, I have to go with Book of the Unnamed Midwife. I have talked about this a million times before. It's really the only runaway book I can think of that I actually have on my shelves. But this series is another set of dystopian books by a woman author. And we are following various characters who are basically always on the run because our main characters are all women identified to some extent or another, and they are being hunted, really. Like, it's almost impossible to get pregnant. It's especially difficult to carry through that pregnancy. Women are becoming kind of a rare commodity, and so you have these main characters who are on the run or who are disguising themselves in order to survive their current environment, which is after the dystopia happens. Like, it's after the disaster happens, so they're living in this whole new world that they have to navigate, and their existence is so dangerous. So very much a runaway book. Highly recommend this series, of course, because if you've been here for a while, you know I love this series. Hi, a book that kept you up all night. I'm gonna have to go with Gillian Flynn's Dark Places. Of Gillian Flynn's 3 novels, this is the one that I hear the least about, and it is also my absolute favorite. Unpopular opinion, I didn't actually like Sharp Objects that much. I don't know what it is about that book. It's definitely my least favorite of the 3, but Dark Places is it's this bloody horror whodunit. You meet this fan club of the main character. It's like this convention of people who hang out together to try and solve cold cases. Everything about this book was so interesting to me. You've got this back and forth timeline between what happened when everything went down and what's happening currently, and I don't know why people don't talk about this one more. I think Dark Places was by far her best book, but maybe it's just me. Hate Me, a book that brought you to tears, that is going to have to be Deanie by Judy Blume. There's not a lot of books that made me cry, but this book made me cry. If you've seen the video, you know what I'm talking about. I will put it up in the cards, but this is about a girl with scoliosis, and as a former child with scoliosis, this book gave me a lot of feelings, particularly around maturity and period stuff, because that's just a really long and complicated history. So definitely brought me to tears. If you have scoliosis and you haven't read Deanie yet, Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I mean, I guess it depends on how sensitive you are to that. But it was really nice to find a character that I could kind of relate to, because people with scoliosis just don't get storylines that much. Bad Karma, a book that is legendary. I believe this was also mentioned for the legendary book in Joannotation's video, but I'm going to talk about Rebecca because this book is just legendary to me and to BookTube. Daphne du Maurier is really just going through the whole BookTube community. I love her books so much, and Rebecca especially, just it's very creepy. You've got this like ghost of memory story going on. She made me realize that I could love a slow burn book, and she made me realize that I could love an environmental setup, and I will always appreciate her for that. And if you haven't read Rebecca yet, please do. Most people have enjoyed it. Most people. Next we have Never Be Me, a character who plays with fire. For this one, and I know a couple of fiery characters, but I actually decided, like I have the Poppy War on my shelf and everything, but I wanted to go more literal. So I ended up actually picking up the nonfiction Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty, where she literally plays with fire, because this book is about her experience working in a crematory and collecting bodies for the crematory and working with families in the crematorium. And I loved this book. She takes death and these experiences and makes them more lighthearted and adds in her sense of humor. And just, if you have any questions about death, her channel's the one to go to, her books are the ones to read. It's fascinating, and it's funny, and it's personable, and I loved every moment of reading this book. Lastly, we have Golden G-String, a coming-of-age story. This was actually recommended to me by someone who was coming of age, and that is How to Grow an Addict. This is a book that I don't think I've heard a single thing about from anyone on BookTube. This is a girl who has a bit of a rough upbringing and ends up becoming an addict because of so many different things going on in her life. Would recommend it if you're at all interested in mental health stories. I believe this starts out in like group therapy or something, and she's supposed to open up and tell her story, and then you tell the story through the book. And J.A. Wright, the author, is, if I remember correctly, 30 years sober. So this book is own voices in that sense, and very much like talking about this experience and being like, hey, this happens to kids too. That is going to be it for the Plastic Hearts book tag. I haven't done a book shot in a while, so let's see if I can hold these up. But here we have my options, or my choices for the Plastic Hearts album questions. If you are interested in Plastic Hearts, then please do this tag. That album was phenomenal. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media, be Joanna's friend on social media, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.